this clip from a full-length interview that will be posted this week, I am talking to Justin Trottier. In 2005, at the age of only 22, Justin started the University of Toronto's Secular Alliance. Within 2 years, this small, local, grassroots project would go national, becoming the biggest atheist organization in Canada. During his time as National Executive Director for Canada's most influential atheist organizations, he began a personal side project shining light on issues faced by men and boys. In late 2012, the atheist movement would become engulfed in a feminism and social justice-related culture war that functioned as a prelude to the culture war that has engulfed all of us for the past 8 years. As an open supporter of advocacy for men and boys, Justin, a straight white male in a position of power, found himself in the middle of a bullseye. The toxicity of the conflict led Justin to eventually leave the atheist organizations that he birthed, devoting himself fully to what was initially simply a side project, boys and men's issues advocacy. Justin would launch the Canadian Association for Equality, or CAFE, which would host educational events that unexpectedly garnered international attention. Well, more specifically, the angry protests that these events inspired would garner international attention. In this video, Justin and I discuss how one of the angry protesters would become a cultural icon. One thing that, so as like Justin, he's kind of very behind the scenes. And so one thing that almost nobody who watches this video will know is they may recall those very highly publicized protests at the University of Toronto that happened around 2015-16. One of them was at the big Warren Farrell event where people were being blockaded from entering the facility. And then there was other speaker events where there was that infamous young woman with the red hair and the white jacket who developed—
Big Red, yeah.
Yeah, Big Red. Like, she is like people who haven't even heard of her know who she is because they've seen her on thumbnails and on compilation videos, and like she was kind of like Karen before Karen. And so all this stuff happened at events that you created, you and your peers at the organizations that you were heading. Like, so it's like you're the guy that was behind all these brilliant memes and stories that just ran rampant online.
Well, yeah, and you know, we didn't, again, to my earlier comment, we didn't do it looking to attract big reds or anything, you know, anybody like that. It was these events. I mean, unfortunately, what kind of gets lost in all the discussion around the protests and the negative responses that it received is the substance of the events themselves. Like, these were events talking about male suicide. Why are men committing suicide at 3 times the rates of women? We were trying to study that problem with an eye to better understanding how we could intervene to literally save people's lives. Like, when I say these are life and death issues, that's an example, right? Okay, so lost in all the focus being on the big reds who attended the events and the protesters and some of that negative response is the substance of what was actually being discussed. And I think it's important, if anybody's going to analyze, you know, did the work of CAFE, you know, was it fair to have people like Big Red attend and protest it? You got to actually look at what they were coming to protest. These were events, in the case of Big Red, that were dealing with male suicide. We were asking the question, basically, why are men 3 times more likely to die by their own hand than women? And what are some positive interventions that could save their life? So again, when I say these are life and death issues, that's a pretty good example of it. And it's interesting that in response to events aimed literally at saving men's lives, groups like the U of T Student Union decided to organize riots to try to shut down these discussions. And so, yeah, you really got to kind of juxtapose the nature of the event and what the speakers were saying with the tone and substance of the response to appreciate what was actually happening.
From what I recall, because I think I heard Warren Farrell talking about these events like right after they happened, and you guys did not see that coming. Like at least not to the scale. I don't like, did you guys foresee there being protests to Warren Farrell, or did you think they would be just much more tame than they were? Like,
nobody saw it coming. Nobody had done anything like this. So there hadn't been a forum to protest. Nobody had thought to invite a speaker with a with the pedigree of Warren Farrell, like with his stature. He had written best-selling books. He was a former director of the National Organization for Women. He's a bit of a lightning rod, but the reason is that, again, he talks about things that are inconvenient in some places of society, like suicide, like, parental alienation and false allegations and very serious issues of substance. But the issues and the philosophy is often at odds with reigning feminist orthodoxy. And so folks on the more extreme side of that ideology see him as public enemy number one. And now he's coming to University of Toronto, like U of T's, biggest university, most prestigious, at least U of T, almost, graduates like to think it's this highly prestigious institution in Canada. And so, yeah, the feeling by some of these folks was, we can't allow this. We need to shut this down. Even before there was such a thing as cancel culture, they were trying to cancel our organization and the speakers that we were bringing to campus.
Got it. All right. Well, so let's go back in time a little bit and switch the subject to atheism. So you started, you got into atheist activism in a big way in 2005.